Thank you, Presiding Officer, and let me congratulate my colleague Emma Harper on allowing us the opportunity to debate the important subject. The whole debate is anchored on Resolution 1325. It doesn't, of course, stand alone in Security Council resolutions. There have been significant numbers since then, culminating on this subject on Resolution 2493, which was passed last year. So 20 years have passed, the United Nations Security Council continues to have resolutions on this subject. And I think that illustrates something very important, that if fine words in the Security Council, fine words in this Parliament, are of limited value. They set examples, they set frameworks, but they don't actually solve the problem. We do know there are women out there who are leaders in the fight for peace and who are examples to us. For me, I would say Mother Teresa is a great example as a humanitarian. Mary Robinson is a great example as a champion in the climate change and particularly the effects on women. And of course, 17-year-old Greta Thunberg is leading the way in persuading people of all genders across the world of the importance of creating a safe and secure world in which we can all live. We know, if we look at our prisons, the overwhelming majority of people who are in prison are men. They're not women. So we know that in practice, men are relatively likely to be predisposed to violent and extra-social, against the social norms, behaviours that lead to their being convicted and put in prison. Now, we shouldn't pretend, of course, there aren't women out there who espouse violence. Boudica, the Amazonian women, perhaps Golda Meir as well. So women can get engaged in violence, but very much the exception, not the rule. The 2011 Nobel Peace Prize was won by 3 women. That was a first. I hope it will not, by any means, be the last. Women's achievements are manifold across many parts of our society. In the New Year's Honours List, which has just so recently been published, I'm not a great fan of honours, but look at them for what they are. In Scotland, 60% of the awards in Scotland were actually to women, which tells us the enormous contribution of women to our society. But I think in this domain, there's an important couple of things we might focus on. That we've talked primarily in the debate about the role of women in making peace after violence, after war. There is an equally and perhaps even more important role in women preventing war in the first place. And I think that's why it's very important that around the world we're seeing an increased number of women as prime ministers, as presidents, taking leadership roles in a place where they may be more likely to prevent violence in the first place, because prevention is so much better in this domain of activity than cure. That's for sure. We've also got to think about what goes on in the minds of people who espouse violence. And I think in particular of men who, as I exemplified earlier, are perhaps more likely to be disposed towards violence. And I think there are 3 things we can look at here. We can be trained as men to respond to particular situations, and we can do so in this domain as in others. We can acquire skills and knowledge that help us reason a way through problems that we have not previously considered and have not thought about. But the most important of responses is the autonomic response, the automatic response which happens unthinkingly. And we need to take actions that will program men in future generations to respond in a way that is more appropriate to the needs of the world and the needs of peace. But finally, Presiding Officer, let's not imagine that women perpetually have to be victims in all this. Women are the answer, not the problem.